welcome to Squawking Dead. This is episode 25, and we're live.
For your listening pleasure on a Saturday night.
Or revulsion.
Well, hopefully not revulsion.
Hopefully not revulsion. So we're recapping episode 9. People like us, like you and me, Carol.
Yep, exactly. I like that title, People Like Us.
Yeah. With respect to the show, the context is a little different. I think
Yeah, a little different. I don't know if I would say that there was all that much necessarily that happened in this episode. I feel like it was more of a setup, but I actually enjoyed it. I know there was a lot of chatter on the internet of people being sort of kind of like down on it.
Oh, really? But no. Tell me more about that, because I have not heard much of that.
I did. I mean, I heard some people kind of say like, well, it's a lot of the same trope. We got to find this person, that sort of thing, which I get it. 100%. Has it been done before? Yes. But I still really enjoyed this episode for a variety of reasons. I didn't mind the fact that it was an episode setting up the next how many episodes of the remainder of the season. I mean, it won't go through the particulars and details and all of that, but I think that people were just dogging it because this is also the first episode after confirmation that Madison is dead. So I think a lot of people are sort of still on the, I can't believe you killed Madison.
Oh, really? I haven't seen much of that, actually.
I've seen some, and I actually have a couple of coworkers that were sort of like meh on the episode also, and they saw the episode before I did, so I kind of went into it with not the highest of expectations, but I actually enjoyed it.
Yeah, actually enjoyed is kind of a loaded term too.
It is.
If you look at the episode on the whole, it's a lot of pacing. There are obviously some clever things that happen throughout the episode.
Yes.
And not to say that it's few and far between. I mean, you get the flying walkers, you get the way certain walkers got killed in this episode, which I definitely want to go over in time. But not too much is going on. You've got tiny little reveals that that if you didn't really think about it, you don't really dwell on it as much, and you don't really think about it and see that, oh wait, that's important. We should talk about that.
Right.
But other than that, it's as you kind of alluded to, it's kind of a setup.
Yeah.
We're setting up the rest of the season, and I'm glad they kind of bifurcated this season, clearly. Mm-hmm. Whereas, okay, if you take season 8 of The Walking Dead, it's not as much of a bifurcation as it is like an arc.
Right.
It takes you from beginning to end, and it's the same story. But this seems like technically it's a 2-act play.
Yeah.
Season 4 it seems to be.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I do. I think that's a very good way to describe it.
Yeah. And when the acts themselves, I mean, you got the vultures. It's like an opera. You've got the vultures. And you've got the whole before and after time jumpy arc kind of thing going on in the first act.
Yeah.
And in this act, it's the aftermath. And then it seems to be, it's the aftermath. It's who are you after all of the first act is said and done. And again, I know we mentioned this on episode 24, is that I just love the idea that the show recognizes that something happened here. It refuses to allow these characters to move on.
Yeah.
When you really think about it. And I love that because I was trying to think back to season 8, season 7, season 6 of The Walking Dead, and how in certain respects, I mean, I think also in Fear the Walking Dead, when things happen to them, it's not as if they pick up and move on right away, but you do feel that things don't linger, feelings don't linger as much. And if they do, the guy that feels them dies in the next episode or two or something.
Right.
Like Cliff Curtis's character, how he died. It was like, his son died like only a few episodes earlier to that. Prior to that, so it's kind of like, we didn't get to dwell on that. We didn't get to feel that as much. But yeah.
Yeah, no, that's for sure. Completely agree. By the way, before we get into it, I want to say that I have a piece of Walking Dead universe news.
Oh, yeah, good, because I was going to bring up some things too, but go ahead.
So Stephen Ogg apparently is joining a series on TNT. And that series... Why, do you already know what this is?
Of course I do. I have his Instagram, but go ahead.
So
they need to know.
So he's going to be in the TNT drama Snowpiercer.
Uh-huh.
Now, it is a running joke among myself, my husband, my sister-in-law, and my brother-in-law, all about Snowpiercer. You can't bring up Snowpiercer among us because you'll get a collective eye rolling of everyone in the room, with the exception of my husband, who was the one that suggested we watch Snowpiercer.
Oh my God, I'm that guy.
Were you?
But go ahead.
So
no, I didn't watch it, but I'm like, I remember distinctly, it was had to have been my 26th or 27th birthday. And I was like, let's just go watch a movie. And I made all my friends watch About Schmidt.
Oh, God.
The Jack Nicholson movie.
Yes.
And everybody walked out of there going, what in the F did you make me watch?
Yeah, and
it's your birthday and I love you, but no, why? I will never do that again.
About Schmidt at least had some sort of depth to it, because I saw About Schmidt. Actually.
Yeah, but my friends don't.
Oh, well.
not to poop all over my friends, but...
Well, certain friends for certain things.
Right. Yes, exactly.
It's what it is.
Exactly.
But
live and learn, 26.
Yeah, exactly, especially at that age. But we were vacationing down here in Florida before we moved down here, and we were all just hanging out, and we were trying to find something on Netflix to watch. And my husband was like, "Oh, this movie had great reviews." Well, I don't know what reviews he found on Snowpiercer, but okay. So we were like, "Sure, put it on." This movie is a serious mindfuck. I don't even know. I still don't understand the premise of Snowpiercer. I don't understand.
You're going to have to try, because I have no idea.
I have no idea.
It sounds like a book, right?
I have no idea. It's like this futuristic train in like a post-apocalyptic setting, going to God knows where, man-powered by children. It's just this bizarre, it's the most bizarre piece of shit movie I've ever seen in my life. Like, and we were angry. We were angry that he chose this movie to watch. And to this day, if you bring up Snowpiercer, we all just kind of roll our eyes and say, you are never allowed to pick the movie that we watch, because that thing was horrible. And when I saw that they're doing a series, I'm like, who's watching this? Who's watching this movie? And how did this movie get this cult following that now there's an actual show dedicated to this?
We're going to have to get him on to... at some point, because he's not here to defend himself right now.
No, I love Stephen Ogg, and I mean, Stephen Ogg is amazing, but like, when I saw Snowpiercer, I was like, are we talking about the same thing? But when I saw his caption being like, all aboard, I'm like, we really are talking about the same damn movie. Like, it's the same, we really are.
I want your husband to retweet that and just say, hey, Carol.
He doesn't know. I'm going to send it to him. Like, I'm going to text him. Like, I took a screenshot of like Stephen Ogg's post, and I was like, because I was like, this can't be, but it is. I was like, oh my God, this is such a horrible movie.
Oh, that's
but
so great.
I mean, I still can't tell you what it's about. And not in a good way. There's some movies that if you ask, like if somebody were to ask you, well, what's it about? Like, you would have a hard time, but it doesn't necessarily mean it's bad. Like, one of my favorite movies is The Big Lebowski. But if somebody were to ask me, well, what's it about? Like,
that is a really good question.
What would you tell them? Like, the only thing I could say is a guy comes into this guy's house, pees on his rug, and all hell breaks loose. That's it.
You'd have to give me a couple seconds, just because
Like, how would... If I never saw the movie and I came to you and I was like, well, what's The Big Lebowski about?
Okay, how about this? It's a series of events in the day of a life of an aimless man who gets into something that is supposed to be bigger than him, but ends up being just another part of his daily routine.
That's a way better description than mine, so I applaud you for it. But do you know what I mean? It's like, there are certain movies, but I love The Big Lebowski. It's still one of my favorite movies, but it's definitely one of those movies that, like, it's not easy to describe to somebody what it's about.
No, not at all. You'd really just have to kind of go into the character that Jeff Bridges plays, and then you start from the person, the character, and then just move your way outwards. He has a friend that blah 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 and does this.
Or my favorite character in that
doesn't
movie.
roll on Shabbos. So, I can tell you all about Shabbos, and he's kind of right about that.
John Goodman's my favorite character in that movie.
Oh, that's really good.
But yeah, so Stephen Ogg is going to be in Snowpiercer.
All aboard.
Oh, when I saw that, I was like, God damn it. I hate that movie more than like...
Children, move. Let's get this train moving. I guess because it's piloted by children.
Yes,
or
it is.
Conducted, right? Is that the right word? Engineered?
I don't even know. I mean, it was... I have no idea what the purpose of that movie was whatsoever. I still don't to this day, and it's been years since I've seen that movie. And I thought that that ship had sailed and it had been buried. But I think it's one of those...
ship had sailed and is sunk. Yeah.
I think it's one of those movies that's so awful it has like a cult following. You know those movies like that, they're just so bad. Like they are. Like there are certain movies.
There's like movies that are I don't know, not intentionally bad, but they're so bad that they have a cult following. Like The Room. You've seen The Room? Oh,
Which one was that one?
You've not seen The Room. You would know just by me saying The Room. The Tommy Wiseau film from like early 2000s. Oh boy. This movie is so bad that it's like it's like hilarious.
Oh God, yeah.
Because it's so earnestly made by the creator and protagonist of the movie. So the protagonist is the director, is the writer, is the producer. He put millions of dollars into this film.
Yeah.
And he also put it in theaters by himself. And
so he believed in this thing.
Yeah, and it was a huge bomb. It did not make money. But then people like kind of rediscovered it, and then in like internet culture, it kind of breathed a new life. So whatever it is, whatever this success story is, it just the so bad it's good. It's like the quintessential. It's so bad it's good.
And there are those movies. It's so bad it's good. I mean, I can't think of many off the top of my head, but
this doesn't sound like one of them.
It was not good. I mean, it was just awful.
Like there's no redeeming quality. It wasn't even funny.
Oh no, it was not funny. It was not funny.
The joke was that Eddie made you go.
No, thank God it was on Netflix.
Oh, thank God, yeah.
Yeah, no, if we paid money for this thing, we would have been livid.
We would have been like, I think this is grounds for divorce.
We would have like lost
and I get custody.
Because
automatically.
I'm going to text the screenshot to my sister-in-law, Eddie, and my brother-in-law and show them this. And I'm going to highlight Snowpiercer in that caption.
It's a shame they're not in the live chat right now.
And they're going to shudder. Shudder.
Right, they're gonna use emojis to display their PTSD for this movie.
Yeah, because I'm sure
or like use GIFs, right?
Yeah, because they forgot probably that this thing ever existed, and it's like, oh no, it's been resurrected.
Yeah. Speaking of resurrect.
On that note,
we're resurrecting the dead, the living, and we're also resurrecting this thread.
Yes, we're getting the train back on that track. No pun intended.
All right, so let's start the show from the top. I love how amused with ourselves we can be, and we're live. So how about that?
There we go.
I'm giving you all the middle finger, as if this whole conversation wasn't giving everybody the middle finger. You can't see me, but there's two of them up. Yeah, it's good.
It's good.
Okay. So the one thing that I want to kind of just cover and just bury,
yes,
kind of like Snowpiercer, is the beginning scene is pretty cool. There's like this one-shot pan effect.
Yes.
The sign moving and you see the walkers eating the horse. And my mind, when I was doing the second watch and starting to write notes, my mind immediately wandered to the conversation that we had about Rick in the first season of Horse.
Yeah.
Him not being on it, but then Kari Payton and Tom Payne are sharing that horse, basically, apparently. And then I was just kind of like, okay, who cares? And then
oh my God, they're eating a horse.
And then I see like them eating the horse. I'm like, is this a direct FU to The Walking Dead? Who cares about the horse?
I know, it could be.
So in essence, that is the first season horse, and the walkers are eating it. That's all I have to say about that.
I was just kind of like thinking about the fact that I wonder what the mass is on like some of these like walkers, because I mean, you do start to see some of them kind of get blown away, by the winds. And I thought to myself, I'm like, well, if you're in hurricane conditions, I mean, I guess it depends on the level of the hurricane that it is.
Somewhere in the episode, Althea says it's 100-mile-an-hour winds, right?
Uh-huh.
Now, I would say that it's probably enough to toss at least a normal human around, right?
Yeah.
Like, at least tumble around, not like blow away, right?
Right.
Am I wrong? I don't know.
I would think so, because I wonder, like...
Wait, we're live. We can do this.
Now. I'm going to look up and see what category hurricane that is.
Oh, my God. It would only take like 45 miles an hour to start blowing people away.
Oh, wow.
For a person who weighs 100 pounds, it would take a speed of 40 to 45 miles an hour.
Wow. So 100-mile-an-hour winds. There you go.
So if you're like nearing 200 miles, I guess there's a like a physics experiment here.
Yeah. No,
but I'm assuming a walker's at like about 100 pounds, right?
Right, because they're emaciated.
Oh my God. So they could blow away, right?
Yeah, they could, based on that. I mean, I'm seeing that a hurricane that's 100-mile-an-hour winds, it's like a category 2 hurricane.
That's crazy. Hey, they got the physics right. I knew they were talking about that too. They're like, what would it take? What would it take to blow a walker away?
So crazy. Very interesting, though. This is good to know.
Yeah, so I'm glad they just opened with that. Another thing I noticed in the beginning was that they're using the cool little intros. They're still using the intros for this entire season, the little montages. They
are. They're cool, but at the same time, I gotta say, I'm a sucker for a consistent, like, kind of theme music. You know what I mean?
Oh, I love the music. Do you like the tunes from this season?
No,
intro?
The intro with, like, for the new intros, it's fine, but I think think it's unexpected for a show that's like post-apocalyptic horror. You know, it's has almost like a westerny twang to it. You know, it's which is fine, but it's very very different than
the gothic-y kind of Bear McCreary intro as The Walking Dead. But it's definitely different. Well, see, that's the thing. You remember the first 3 seasons, they were still using that.
Right.
And they were from LA, so I guess that kind of makes more sense, right? But then as they moved on. Point.
Yeah, they were in that region, and now we've moved over to Texas, so maybe.
Oh my God. Like, can you imagine if they used some sort of Mexican music? How many seasons were they in Mexico? Like 2? No, like 1.5 maybe.
Well, 1.5, yeah.
Yeah. I can't even imagine.
No, I think people would have an issue with that.
The optics on this aren't really great. We just spoke to Cardi B. I don't know.
Oh my gosh.
Her comment was, yeah, this stupid.
Side note, Eddie can't stand her. He's like, I can't stand listening to her talk. I'm like, well, sorry. But that is her authentic self.
God make me with a mouth.
Yeah, no.
To talk.
Yeah, that's about right.
I feel like that's something she would say.
It is. It sounds
God made me with a mouth to talk.
That sounds like almost something word for word she would say.
Dude, I don't know anything about her, but from the few snippets of her, I kind of get it.
Yeah, I mean,
then she does those little sound effects every now and again.
Yeah, she's very what's the word?
Oh, I can't wait for this. What is she, Carol?
No, she's no, I was gonna say she's very descriptive, but she's
no.
She's very vocal, but she does a lot of sound effects, you know, for whatever reason.
Where she lacks in vocabulary, she'll make up with sound effects.
Right.
Okay.
Precisely.
Gotcha.
Exactly. You know, instead of saying like, okay, you know, like I got you, she might be like, bloop, you know, I don't know. Like
she's your twin sister. What I don't know.
God, insane.
Okay.
Insane.
Okay. So we got the intros. We got the intro music.
Yes.
So yeah, and eventually the season's gonna end, and then at some point we're gonna string together all the intros to see if obviously there's a story. It's kind of like a mini-sode.
Yeah, that's the idea, right?
These intro sequences, yeah. Yeah. So the first thing that we get after that hurricane intro, we get Morgan, and he's kind of packing up. He's preparing for this journey that we don't know about. Like he's just kind of preparing a whole bunch of supplies.
Right. By the way, I love the fact that we show protein bars.
Yes, the peanut butter protein bars. See, we both wrote that down.
I was like, throwback to Clear. It's great.
Yeah, to Clear, to the joke with Michonne, the whole thing. The beloved popcorn socks are there too.
I love those little like nods, you know?
Yeah. I felt like when I was looking at him pack things up, there was like an element of his life laid out before him almost. You know, between the peanut butter protein bars, the popcorn socks.
I like that shot, you know. I mean, in general, I like a lot of shots like that when you have like, let's say, an assortment of things and you take like that sort of overhead shot. And I like that they kind of did something like that because it does kind of seem like that. It's like, this is his life basically right here.
Right. And it makes sense to us because when he finally says it, he says it to Maggie. She goes, what if I take you there? What if I take you to Alexandria? Remember that whole life that I alluded to that you don't believe? Mm-hmm. Yeah, I could bring you to that life. And and it floors all of us. You don't see... Did you even have a feeling that...
No.
I don't think it entered our mind that Morgan would be anybody... And this is, I think, a key point because in our minds, I think we both thought Morgan was here to stay. This is where he belongs.
Right.
Right?
Yeah. I never in my mind even considered the possibility... Whenever there's been talk about like, oh, well, maybe the worlds will collide or whatever, like...
Oh, right, yeah.
I never really thought of the possibility of... It kind of ended at the point that, okay, Morgan's on Fear now, and that's it. And it kind of ended there, but I never really considered the idea of, oh, wait, will Morgan come back? And then it kind of blew my mind because, you know... Throughout the episode, he talks about like his friend and how maybe he was right and all of this sort of stuff. And I'm just like, oh my gosh, well, how sad would it be if Morgan does come back only to come back to a dead Rick? You know what I mean? Knowing what we know of what's going to happen on Walking Dead.
Which, by the way, that was Lenny James was asked, what if Morgan were to come back and Rick was gone? What would that do? I didn't get to read or see the video clip regarding this, but he had said it would literally rock Morgan's foundation to know that Andrew Lincoln, that Rick was gone.
Yeah, I mean, because the thing is, like, he speaks with a lot of confidence, even when, you know, they talk about, like, you know, when he talks about going back to Virginia, to Alexandria, and they're like, oh, well, they might not be there.
Right.
He's very confident, like, no, they'll be there. He has the utmost confidence in Rick, and his crew that like they'll be fine.
Yeah.
So yeah, I could see how.
And we agree, right?
Yeah. But like if he were
not
to
for your comic knowledge.
No, well, because at this point the comic knowledge is like pointless.
It's starting to reach an apex. Even like with The Walking Dead, it's starting to reach like a finite. We know things, but then after a little while, we're gonna stop knowing things.
Yeah, there are certain things that like there just isn't any precedence for it in the comics. So it's sort of like, I don't know, it could go any direction. But if indeed Morgan were to go back to Alexandria, and with the time difference, I don't know. That's the thing too. It made me think about it, because I was like, we're going into the future in Walking Dead. So what does that mean in terms of Morgan? If Morgan were to ever go back, I don't know.
Right. Where does he appear? Right.
There was one podcast that I listened to, and they made up a good point. They're like, look, Morgan could be on Fear right now, and he can be on Walking Dead, considering Walking Dead is jumping into the future. You don't know in the year's time that pass if Morgan came back and whatever.
And goes again.
Yeah, it's actually good for them in terms of it gives them flexibility in terms of like how you want to play this necessarily. But
especially since they haven't filmed the back 8 of FTWD season 9. Anything is possible, right?
Sure.
Oh boy, my mind is reeling because I just can't. I think it's like to me, it's like almost a foregone conclusion that he's not going to that Morgan's not going to be part of TWD for like years, if not at all. And that maybe tells us something too, by the way, that maybe Fear will not ever join. Those two worlds will ever join up. I'm starting to have not serious doubts, but like this niggling, creeping in the back of my skull doubt that like these two worlds are going to link up. And if that's true, and yet they're going to be filming season 5, so is it going to be like a full 5 years in their world before they meet up again? Plus, is there going to be a crossover? Is there going to be some allusions to the video game, the Telltale game? Because the Telltale game is in the future, is in that like I think 5 years ahead or some odd years ahead. So the show is kind of catching up with the game, at least this last installment of the game, I think. So because the main character, I think in that game, the protagonist, she grows up throughout each of the iterations of the game. So they're kind of far in the video games. So there's like a time, I wouldn't say there's a timeline issue, but there's concerns, timeline concerns.
It's mind-boggling.
Yeah, so it's up to them to decide whether or not they're going to care about those things. I mean, obviously they're gonna want to care about Fear and The Walking Dead. I don't know about Telltale, but I don't know. But it is the last season of the game, so knowing that there's not going to be any more of the game could give them a, it's kind of like, well, we won't have to worry about the future of the game because it's over. But now we can fit it in somewhere. I don't know. It's just a thought. I've never played the game, but it would be cool if they cast a live action version of that character. And I was always wondering about, and I know I'm moving in and out of different topics and tangents, but there was this one character that they had on
Telltale?
No, on Fear the Walking Dead. They had that one character. She was the one that was in the plane crash.
Okay.
You know how they have those little mini-sodes in the commercials? During season 1, I think it was, or 2? I think it was season 1. They had scenes from an airplane of like one of the passengers being the first one getting sick and turning, and the plane ends up crashing, and it crashes with this one girl, I think she's Asian, and this other guy who's badly like sunburned and injured and stuff like that, and they're on a life raft, and eventually the minisode character meets up with them on the boat, so I think it is season 2, and they take them on, and they're like, we don't trust this guy, and they leave him on the boat, and he's exposure, and he's a blanket on him, but eventually they cut her loose with the dinghy, and they don't let her on the boat. This is how mistrustful they are of people, because they encountered some people, and Henry killed somebody, and it's the whole thing. But like, I wonder about these. She's kind of like almost like a Heath character. I mean, not as close to the gang. I mean, she kind of has a bone to pick with them. But I wonder what happens with her, because I don't know. I kind of like the character, and I kind of like that she could have been on the show. I think she was even on Talking Dead too, by the way.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, this is how like they kind of built her up, and then I guess they didn't use her again. So I don't know. Just thinking out loud. There are like tons. There are some loose threads in Fear the Walking Dead, and that's definitely one of them. So.
Well, yeah, I think that there's definitely a lot of threads too. I mean, even a lot of people say like, well, what happened to this character or this character,
Oh yeah, like Taka.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
It
pretty
makes me
much.
wonder if he'll show up again. Yeah, because we talked a big game about Taka, and like, he has not shown, and
Yeah.
I don't think he will, because it seems like there was a huge time like a year and a half time discrepancy between the time they left Brokejaw, the dam, and then finally made it to the diamond and all that stuff. And even then they were playing with time too, like a couple months between. Oh no, a year. So maybe it was a year and a half, 2 years and a half, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
So Taka's not been in the picture for a long time. If he was
Yeah.
going to show up, he was going to show up in the beginning.
Yeah, you would think, right?
Yeah, the beginning of season 4.
Right.
Yeah, that coffee with tequila really does a number on my thought process.
Oh, did you? You had coffee?
I had coffee with, it's kind of like a Bailey's with tequila instead of whiskey.
Ah, okay.
And now I'm on a dinghy right now because I need water in supply.
Oh my God. Are you like alert though? Like, do you feel, because I find that tea does that for me.
I'm hot right now. I have to like
Really?
I have to literally like reach back to the AC that's in this room and turn it on, or like lower
Oh
the
my
thermostat.
God.
But
That is so.
But I'm hanging in there. I do it for you guys. I do it for the 2 watchers listening right now.
See, there you go. And for me, Amy 3.
Yep.
Well, I mean, listen.
Of course I do. I'm giving the middle finger to our 2 watchers just for you. I don't do this for the rest of the world. I do this for us. This is
know.
like purging. This is like therapy.
My husband's grateful to you, because I get into it sometimes, and he's like, "Okay, that's fine."
Or do a podcast, Carol, because I can't talk to you right now.
It's like, okay.
I don't know who you are anymore without Squawking Dead.
And it's funny because my mom also she cracks me up with it, because I'll tell her when Walking Dead comes on. It's Fear the Walking Dead. It's like, sometimes like if I don't catch it on Sunday, I'll catch it the next day. I'll
Right.
watch it on my phone or on my DVR.
To me, it's like committing a mortal sin. But what do you go on? Okay.
So, I'm just being transparent here.
No, okay.
But when Walking Dead is on, it's like, no, I go to my bedroom and I'm like, the door gets locked and
I was gonna joke about that, but damn, okay.
No, I do. And I ask
Candles
my mom,
are lit, right?
I asked my mom, because she takes care of the kids. I'm like, I need 2 hours, just 2 hours by myself so I can watch this and pay attention to what goes on. And my mom always calls it the monster show. She's like, is that your monster show? I'm like, yeah, it's my monster show.
Yeah, it's a monster show. So what's your favorite Yankee candle? So what is the Walking Dead candle for you? The scented candle? Is it lavender? Is it?
There is no candle. It's funny. Like I just basically make myself comfortable. I have a snack. I have like
Lionel Richie comes on.
some tea.
Hello.
Like I get myself comfortable. I'm like, okay, I can watch this. No, because you have to pay attention. It's not one of those like BS shows that you could just have in the background. That's like my daytime television.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
for sure. The moments that I regret the most are when, and this is why I don't like, I like watching the first watch without taking any notes, because it's kind of like I want to be there, I want to be present watching the show, and then later on I'll watch it again to be more technical, and I'll make notes in my head of that's
Right.
important, oh that's interesting. But even with Fear the Walking Dead, I mean that's where I'm at with the show, at least with this season. There's a little bit more meat to this season. There's some things to watch out for.
yeah, for sure.
So, okay, so we have the stage set up with Morgan leaving, Maggie being really interested in what Morgan has to offer, I think. Like, if there are communities, it sounds to me that, I keep saying Maggie, right? I said Maggie, not Althea. In my notes, I'm typing Maggie, like Maggie Grace.
I know.
It's so
This
hard
can
not
throw
to.
you off. I know.
So Althea can't resist this, and to me it seems as though Althea, like out there, at least in the Southwest maybe, is a lot rougher. You're talking about land masses that are more sparse, there's a lot less people in terms of population maybe, and it seems like she's not had a really good time meeting groups of individuals. She kind of just meets bits of individuals along the way, not really whole communities.
Right.
So I think to Althea, this kind of opportunity is kind of like a once in, or at least like the first of many. And can you imagine her meeting up with Eugene?
Oh my God.
Like, holy crap, I filmed you. Oh, how'd you get here?
I know. Oh my gosh. Can you? That would be amazing.
Right?
That would absolutely be amazing. I would love to see that.
Yeah. But, having that happen means that Morgan does leave John Dory. And these are the things that are going through your head. Because, again, going back to the beginning, did you imagine that Morgan would be, first of all, this quickly thinking about going back to Alexandria? No. And the reason is because of his best friend, John Dory.
Yeah.
And his friendship there, his kind of affinity for Alicia, and I think recognizing that something inside him, and we're going to talk about this in this episode, is that Alicia is showing signs of being a Morgan. And we can talk about this now, actually.
Mm-hmm.
Alicia has lost her mother and
Yes.
has lost her brother. Morgan had lost his wife first, then his child.
Mm-hmm.
He loses people, then he loses himself.
Yes.
Alicia's just lost the people. She went on a vengeance quest. She stopped the vengeance because Morgan really stepped in, kind of like Rick Grimes stepped in the first time at least. And that didn't quite work out until he met Eastman and the whole thing, and then came back, and it's still kind of not great. But Alicia having that Morgan character really, really understand what it's like to have lost and to be able to stop her the first time. But I think Alicia's still kind of in it, and she could be what Morgan was, whom I don't really think is anymore. That's an interesting juxtaposition right there.
Yeah. It's a very interesting relationship there.
Yeah, what's your take with Alicia right now? I mean, okay, let's go into the story with her and the AG Lumber Company, AGL Lumberyard.
Yes.
Because when Morgan meets up with her and talks to her about heading out to Alexandria, you're strong, you can meet a community, you can be a part of a community with strong people. I think that would be good for you and the rest.
Yeah.
And she's like just waving off his offers, like somebody here needs help now. And she's seeing the notes tacked onto the bodies and explaining it to Morgan and everything. And so to me, it looks like a lot like, look, she just lost her mom just after teaching her to bring people in and save people and stuff like that. I think she just wants a win. You ever get into that thing where nothing seems to be working for the day and you want to just at least end off the day at your work day, right? With just like, oh, can I just get one win and I can go home and feel okay?
That sounds like last week. Sure.
It's like me, yeah.
Yeah.
That sounds a lot like what she's going through. It's kind of like, I just need to first of all, she needs to make up for, I think there's a part of her that's almost regretful about the vengeance quest. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, I think
it made her lose her brother,
I think that she's trying to figure out her place in this crazy world, and she is trying to figure out a way to kind of determine like what's my purpose here. I lost my mother, I lost my brother. Where do I go? Like, what do I do?
What does it mean?
Yeah, where does she go from here? Side note, I gotta tell you, I would be 150% stranded Luciana.
Really? Okay, let's talk about that, because...
Dude, Luciana was basically doing what I did all throughout high school.
Wow.
Laying around. The only difference is that I would have headphones plugged into the radio system, listening to music. That was all I did. I mean, I studied too and obviously did well. But what I'm saying...
Architects, what?
But what I'm saying is that, like, if you came across in this post-apocalyptic world a freaking Texas mansion, which is like a mansion times 10 because it's in Texas.
Yeah.
It's like a freaking compound. There's a cellar with alcohol. There's like a plethora of records. You know what? I guess this is where I'm at.
This is where God led me.
This is basically where God led me, and I'm just going to plant my flag here, and that's it.
Yeah, I can see what you're saying. There's a lot to talk about in that respect, because regarding Strand, it seems to me like they're falling into these their old habits again.
Yes.
Strand with what the boat was called. What's his boat called? Alice, I think.
Mm-hmm.
It was called Alice. His yacht that they were in season 2 on, and that lifestyle and having these backup contingencies, like going to Tijuana and meeting up with this guy, and they get to the guy and they find out he's dying, and Strand has had to kind of get beaten down again and again and again. And you're talking about a guy who's been a con man. He's been hustling his whole life to kind of get to where he is. So all his life has been hustling.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was hard enough work to change who he was, to be that good guy that burnt his hand in the fire, saving his friends from the oily burning walkers and stuff like that. It took a long time for him to get there, to get to that point. And I think losing Madison, his impetus for being that person, and it's something that Ian Goldberg brought up in Talking Dead. He says revenge is what binded everyone together. So you have to remember, after the diamond fell, Madison died, their sole purpose was to get revenge on on the vultures, basically, for putting them in the situation where they lost their friend, their mother, and June, by extension, Charlie for killing Nick.
Right.
That whole thing. Once that quest was over, I mean, they killed the vultures really quickly, but it wasn't enough for them.
No.
If you think about it.
Because it doesn't bring her back. back.
No.
I mean, it's a hollow victory.
No, very hollow. And so once they decided to put their guns down, they sat by the fire, and you couldn't really tell immediately on episode 8 where things were gonna go. And I was almost kind of like, is this how easy it's gonna be? And then we find out in episode 9, it's not gonna be easy at all. The outside world is reflecting what's going on inside with this hurricane coming up. It's like the truth is coming out, and people are dealing with consequences in the middle of this violent storm.
Yeah.
So Strand falling into his old habits is kind of interesting because every time he does this, it just... I mean, from the dam. The whole thing with the dam was him trying to control a situation in his old way, his old con man sort of way, in order to secure the future of him, Madison, her children, etc. Because he loves Madison, but he wants to use his old world talents to kind of influence the future.
Right. And
in the end, it really caused a lot of problems. And even though Madison forgave him, he knew that he's got a lot to make up for.
Yeah.
To be a decent person. So yeah, it's they're licking their wounds. I mean, essentially, they're rudder. It's like Ian Goldberg said this also. They're like rudderless. There's just no direction. And where Alicia could be stepping in and giving them that direction, being the Madison, being the strong one, she's dealing with her own thing. It's just a mess, and it really does. This is really like a Morgan episode, though. At the end of the day, I feel as much as a lot of the acting chops goes to Alicia and Strand, Morgan is the key to the future of this group. I think at the end of the day.
Yep, I agree.
Yeah, because I mean, it seemed, and Alicia has the line essentially. She's basically saying, "Yeah, you could stay too. Yeah, you could help fix us too. Why do you feel like you need to leave? Why do you feel like you need to? You're a part of this group too, and you're leaving."
That's the problem with Morgan, though. It's like I feel like he builds these relationships and then he runs from them.
I'll make friends and then I go away.
Yeah, pretty much. Pretty much.
Oh, man. Yeah. Alicia's right, though, right? You can't just pull in your old habits. Everybody's pulling in their old habits, where... Actually, Ian Goldberg says this again, and this is very interesting. He says, regarding Morgan's departure, Ian Goldberg says it's not just about looking Rick in the eye, and there's something bigger going on for Morgan in terms of him leaving. It's not about going back to Alexandria and making it up to her, looking Rick in the eye and saying you were right about... There's something else. I think and if you had to guess what that was, what thoughts do you have on that subject? To us, it might not seem that obvious that it may be more than just him going back to see Rick and say you're right. Do you think that there's something going on with this group that may be making him want to go away from it?
I think in general, when he starts building attachments, he naturally wants to kind of isolate himself and run away. I don't know necessarily why he wants to do, but it doesn't seem like he wants to run away, like he wants to go back. Like, it's not just sort of like, I need to be alone from society. Like when Carol was on that kick and she was like, I can't be around people, like, and all that. And she just wanted to be alone. So it's not necessarily, it doesn't seem like he wants to be alone. He wants to go back. So I don't know if maybe seeing all this kind of makes him wistful of like the bonds and like the relationships, like values that relationship more, seeing how crestfallen they are over losing Nick and losing Madison. Maybe it kind of makes him think, like I really care about those people, maybe I shouldn't take them for granted. Maybe, I don't know.
He's visiting each and every group who don't live all together, by the way.
I thought that was very interesting too. I'm just like, why aren't we all hanging out at that compound?
And it becomes very clear near the end of the episode why.
Yeah.
And
Charlie.
Exactly. I'm so glad you're on the ball.
Yeah. No. I mean, I get it. Listen, I get it.
Charlie killed Nick and we can't get over it. Period.
It's understandably so. I mean, that's kind of a big deal. So I get it, which is a shame because that compound. Just saying. I'd be like, sorry, kid, but this compound's a pretty good deal.
Yeah. Well, I don't think they would let her live with them anyway.
No, they wouldn't.
Strand,
that's
Alicia, and Luciana. Luciana killed my boyfriend. Strand killed my friend. Alicia killed my brother.
Yeah.
It's just it's like there's just, you can't do anything about it.
No.
It's a vote of no confidence.
No, but I'm just saying, it's like, if I were Althea, John Dory, and June, I would kind of...
June. Question mark. Sorry.
Yeah, question mark. I would be seriously wondering, like, man, we're living in a bus because of this kid, and these guys are living high off the hog. I mean, I don't know. Just saying.
That's an interesting question. Like, do you think that June and John Dory are resentful to Charlie in any way?
No, I don't think they are at all. I would be, but I don't see like, I'm saying I would be, but like, no, they're not. They're better.
So if it was you and me taking care of Charlie, we'd be like, fuck this kid.
Yeah, I would be like, really? So we're gonna live in this bus because there's a freaking mansion down the road. Like, must be down the road because Morgan just walked on over there.
Yeah.
And John Dory walked on over there and knocked on the door.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's clear to me that they don't want to live too far from each other. I think they want to know where each other is, just in case.
Right.
And John Dory, I mean, look, even with his injuries, he is a little bit more mobile after like a month or so. Mm-hmm. Kind of like that is kind of funny. Okay, I didn't think of this until now, but do you remember how June, or rather Laura at the time, washed up near his cabin, and she was the one that was injured?
Yes.
I don't know how I didn't think of like him being the injured one, him and she taking care of him.
I didn't think about that, but you're right. That is a good point, how the tables turned.
Yeah. I don't know. It's like so obvious, and yet like, oh, there's something to that, to him being the injured one, she taking care of him, and yet she is asking the question of, oh, did he fall in love with me because I was being the Laura? I was being scared. I didn't want to be attached to anybody because I was running away.
But I like Althea's answer very well, which is that, like, you've been tending to him, like, day in and day out. It's like, and that is the person that he loves. And that is that was perfect answer.
Yeah, shouldn't that be enough? You know, yesterday is yesterday, today's today, and God knows there'll be a tomorrow.
Yeah.
And I think that really that brings June back to Earth too.
Mm-hmm.
With all the things that are going on in the apocalypse, I mean, clearly these people are really, really, really capable. They're so super capable that they're thinking about things that are that you would normally not think about in the apocalypse.
Right.
Except for maybe Alicia, none of these people are thinking about the day-to-day survival.
No.
Strand's drinking, Luciana's this, John Dory's trying to heal. June, on the other hand, and June is thinking about, who am I with this love relationship? And yeah, they're doing the basics and they're not really thinking about the survival, but it's just this weird thing where, like, who thinks about love during the apocalypse?
No, it's a luxury.
Yeah.
It is a luxury to be able to even consider something like that in this state.
Yeah. I wanted to talk about Charlie a little bit, though, too, because there's something there. She's not talking.
No.
And you can easily see why. When she was talking, she was kind of trying to manipulate the group in the beginning half of the season.
Right.
So there's something about not talking because maybe she's afraid that, I don't know, maybe she just doesn't want to make them upset. Doesn't want to make anybody upset anymore because she did so much harm to the group.
We don't know how she feels. We don't know where her head's at. We don't know if she is resentful of them and that she couldn't necessarily be there to protect what's his name from the vultures.
Ennis.
She cared quite a bit for them. So you don't know if she's mourning her own loss. Who knows?
That's true too. I didn't think about that.
They could be mourning Madison and Nick, but she could be mourning her own loss of them.
That's true.
We don't know.
But there is like a telltale sign, and I'd always been struggling trying to think of whether Charlie really cared about the group or not, because at the end of the day, she did two things. One, when Charlie went back to Mel, you weren't really sure if Charlie was just kind of giving them the finger. Did she really care about the group, even though they were so good to her? She did give the book back, that whole thing.
The Little Prince, yeah.
Yeah, so, which is very interesting. She turned them down every corner. She shot Nick after Nick killed Ennis. So it's hard to think about what she really thought back then.
It is hard.
But then you have this scene where John Dory's trying to take care of business after they play Scrabble, and she kind of takes the opportunity to slip out. And she takes the Little Prince with her, and she brings it to the McMansion that Luciana's staying at. Right. And Luciana's alone, and
she wants nothing to do with it at first.
Right. But Strand is out with John Dory trying to find, they're actually trying to find Charlie, actually. Yeah. Right? And Charlie slips into the mansion. She leaves the Little Prince book with Luciana, and Luciana has this interesting reaction. Well, obviously she comes in at first, and yeah, like you said, she's like, "What are you doing here? What do you want? You know, I don't want you here. You know, what are you trying to ruin now?" You know, right. I think she says, like, "Haven't you done enough?" Right, haven't you done enough? Exactly.
But inevitably, once she sees the book, she decides to go after her too,
right.
Which frustrated me because they left the door open. I was like,
as a New Yorker, I'm offended by this.
I am. I'm like, you can't just close the door after you. Just shut the door. I'm like, now it's been breached, and now there goes the McMansion.
So it's that part of you that wants to stay home and just listen to music again.
Yeah, I totally
You personally.
I personally would have been a combo of Strand and Luciana. I would have been in the cellar and with the records. I thought it was a very well done scene when like you do have this walker that breaches the security and gets in, and like Strand notices it. And it's like coming up behind Luciana, and you get this shot, and you just see Luciana just kind of in her world, like just swaying to the music, while Strand is like trying to kill this walker like behind her. I thought that was awesome, just because she was in a zone.
When Denai Garcia explains that scene, it's just the most hilarious thing, because she's like nodding her head with the music and like side to side and all that stuff. But she's explaining there is no music. I'm pretending to nod my head side to side, pretending to ignore whatever's going on behind them, while the cast and crew are in front of me, filming me head on, and they're kind of trying not to laugh because of Strand.
It's so ridiculous.
Yeah. It's just the acting process is just so funny.
It is. It's hilarious. But I just thought it was so funny because she was just like swaying like to the music.
But I can see why she would leave the door open and all that stuff too, though. If you think about it, like, you look at these rudderless people. They're having a hard time. They're not doing well. And the second you find something to latch onto, which I believe Luciana has found when Charlie leaves the book, I think Charlie leaving the book is kind of like let's say a cry for help for me. Like, oh, this isn't me trying to F your life. Charlie is saying this with the book. This isn't me trying to F your life. This means something. I'm sorry what I did to you. I think that was her message the first time around when she dropped the Little Prince book off. It's like, nothing personal. I appreciate what you did for me, but here, I wanted to personally give this back to you, that sort of thing. I think in this case, she's doing the same thing, but it's kind of like, I'm sorry I hurt you. I didn't mean to. I don't deserve this book. And I think this is a cry for help. Or at least her way of saying, here, I know you have no purpose, but maybe you can read this book.
Yeah.
And you can see that you're the one that's lost. And you're like, maybe I care about you, that sort of thing. Or, by the way, it could also mean that she read the book, and this is her way of thanking her, saying, I read this book, here it is. I had it on me the entire time, that sort of thing. Because you have to remember, like, the stadium went down in flames. So where did she get the book from, right? Right?
Yeah.
So she had it on her all along.
Right.
What Denai says about that book on Talking Dead, she says, Charlie is trying to save Luciana with the Little Prince, just like Luciana was trying to save her back there in the stadium.
Right.
So I think that was like a kind of like lights on moment when she gets the book and she runs out, and she doesn't care. I think she just kind of runs out barefoot. I don't know. Yeah, she just kind of runs out there trying to find Charlie in this storm.
Wow.
If I remember right. And I think that's kind of interesting because I think we're used to seeing Alicia and Strand kind of be the one to get into action, whereas Luciana, we're kind of, I think for her to come online first and wake up and find purpose again, I think that would be kind of cool to see her rally everybody else.
Right.
I always feel kind of nervous about Luciana because her character's always been on the kind of outside sphere of everybody else.
Yes.
They kind of just brought her into into this season. Like, where did she come from? I thought she was gone.
Right.
Remember
That's
when
what
I was kind of confused?
Everybody was.
So to have her have like a little bit more importance, a little bit more prominent role maybe in getting people back together, I think that'd be kind of cool.
It'll be interesting to see.
Okay, so here's a couple points that I kind of want to hit on while Althea, I was about to say Maggie again. Althea and June, they're going out and they're trying to... What were they trying to do? Why did they go out again?
They went because basically they saw like walkers washing up on the river. And so the concern was that there was something going on, and that's what was causing this influx of walkers coming down. So they went to basically scope it out, realizing when they get there that it has nothing to do with that. It's this storm.
They see the migratory birds and stuff like that. Like, hey, no migratory
that's
birds.
So creepy.
That is really creepy.
Because
now I know that
birds,
when
you see animals start to do that, like, shit's about to go down.
I put my ear to the ground. Storm coming.
Yeah. Oh, it's no joke.
But yeah, something happens along the way. Now, obviously, we already kind of got into the discussion that she has with Althea about who she is with John. And I think all of them are really having this conversation in different formats. Strand, who am I? What is my purpose? Is my purpose to just be blitzed out of my mind, drinking every day? Is this the way it's going to be? I think this is what he thought it was going to be when stuff started going down, like him on the boat, out there on the water, and then not a care in the world can go to hell. And he's falling back to old patterns. But I think everybody's more or less asking the question. Even Luciana asks Strand the question when they're patching up the fence. She's like, is this how it's going to be? Is this how...
Is this it? Is this what it's going to be for the rest of our lives? And he's pretty much like, yeah.
Yeah, well, while I figure out this question, I'm going to get bombed out of my brains.
Yep.
Yeah,
pretty
it's
much.
kind of like a purgatory, isn't it?
Kind of. It's neither here nor there.
Yeah, exactly. Neither here nor there. They're living in this lap of luxury, so it can't be that bad, but they're kind of living under this wallowing sadness kind of thing, like, and all in the while having no purpose. It's kind of like they lost their compass, you know? Their center cannot hold, and they can't. When you lose essentially your leader, the idea person, and you're just kind of following her lead, and because, I mean, these people were also self-improving while being led towards this kind of interesting future. So when you lose that, what happens?
Mm-hmm.
When June and Althea are on the road, they see something. They see this box. And I think this box has more significance than what we think. So the box has this thing where it says, take what you need.
Yeah, which was very intriguing to me because I'm not sure what this is leading towards.
Toys, which is weird. MREs, protein bars, and water. So, like, is there another benevolent traveler out there?
In the Walking Dead universe, you have to look at everything with a highly skeptical eye.
Exactly. And that's kind of what I'm saying. Like, I don't think this is something we should keep our eye off of.
No.
And we do know that there are new characters coming about, and, you know, are these characters benevolent, or are they people like us, quote unquote?
Right.
You know, like that Strand says,
Yep.
you know, trying to trick people. But, like, you know, that's the thing, you know, like, could there be other benevolent people? You know, I don't know. I mean, especially meeting the vultures, that was bullshit right there.
Well, I mean, that's the thing, and that's where they're coming from. You know, they're kind of feeling like, look at what we encountered with the vultures, and, you know, it doesn't give them much confidence in terms of other groups, or like Alexandria when Morgan was trying to sell that to them, you know?
Oh, yeah. Oh, man. Good luck, Morgan.
Yeah, good luck with that.
No guns. What?
Oh.
I think this is kind of like one of those teasers of, like, what's to come. I do think it has something to do with these new characters. I don't know what their angle is just yet.
Yeah.
You do see in the teasers that one of the dudes, the dude in the wheelchair, has a shotgun, like, at Morgan's head. He says, "Can you lower that?" He goes, "Sure thing," and he just lowers it to his gut. So I'm kind of intrigued by. I know there's at least two main characters and another third character that are coming in. But so yeah, I think it's important to keep an eye on. Also, by the way, when Alicia and Morgan get to the lumber yard and they find out the guy is gone, and she freaks out and she's kind of feeling failure. But before that, I love that scene where Morgan and her devise this plan to drop all the lumber on the crane on all those walkers.
That
was
awesome.
a nice little clever way.
It was like
dispatch them.
It was like something out of a cartoon.
Like Super Mario Brothers.
Yes.
How do we get all these Goombas flattened?
Yeah, it's like, let's just like lead them here and then bloop, just flatten them.
And you know that's Morgan's plan, by the way. He's like, I got a plan. I learned this from Super Mario Brothers.
Yeah, he did it. I mean, yeah, that was pretty awesome.
Boop, 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 boop.
It was pretty impressive. I was like, yeah, pretty cool.
Yeah. I like clever walker kills. You know, it's just something to look forward to.
Stylistic walker kills are definitely. That's the whole reason on Talking Dead they have their like in memoriam area just to kind of cover all the cool walker kills
and human kills.
And human kills also, yes.
Yeah. I think we're gonna see more Walkers in the Wind next week. I think.
Oh yeah,
it sounds like so. Right.
I think so.
Yeah,
I think for sure.
Yeah, so that's something to look forward to. And then also, like as we discussed last week, was we're gonna add. There's fun to have during the storm, but there's also gonna be fun after the storm. So there's gonna be a flood. I mean, the part of the teasers next week they talk about. Alicia does run into Charlie in this place she's trying to take shelter in, his house. I feel like it's one of those almost. I'm not gonna say Twilight Zone episodes, but it's kind of like a Hitchcock Presents episode where she's going mad just after this episode with the guy she couldn't save, and it's kind of like, what are you doing here? Are you here to get me? Are you here to kill me? He's like the talking Tina doll, except Charlie is neither a doll nor does she talk.
Yes.
So I don't know. Is it coincidental that they end up in the same house? Is she imagining Charlie in the house? That's really weird.
Yeah, I hear you. I know.
So I honestly cannot wait for that, because I was a huge Twilight Zone watcher. I loved Hitchcock Presents. I love
I'm a Twilight Zone fan,
these mini episode sci-fi kind of shows, these fantasy horror suspense kind of thriller episodes.
Yeah.
But like psychological terror kind of thing.
Yeah, no, 100%.
And I like that they've kind of figured out a way to do that on this show. Like, they think of everything.
Oh yeah. There's thought.
Yeah. Talking about Alicia just for a second though, and I do want to go back to Charlie for a second, but Alicia, there's something about her also falling into bad habits. Like after she realized she failed with this guy trying to save him, like he ran out of food or something, come quickly, and then he couldn't manage to tack that note on.
Right.
And it's something about her falling into bad habits too, because after she finished with Broke Jaw Ranch, I think it was, she wanted to be on her own. She's like, screw you, screw Nick. If Nick can go off on his own, I can go off on my own. Madison kind of gives her a weird blessing. She's like, I have to learn to stop being me, Madison, she says. It's kind of like, I have to stop trying to protect my children and sort of like, I have to let you do what you want, what your own thing and stuff. But yeah, she went off on her own then. She's going off on her own now against Morgan's kind of best advice, that sort of thing, in the middle of this violent storm. So she's kind of falling back to old habits. Like, I don't need anybody. Meanwhile, I think it's kind of like, what's the point if I can't help save this guy? She's like, I can't. How am I supposed to save Strand and Luciana? Like, how am I supposed to pull them all together?
Right.
So I don't know. It's and then Morgan is threatening to leave, and it's kind of like, maybe Alicia is right about Morgan. Like, why are you running away from us? What is it that you're afraid of?
Right.
And that's it's kind of going back to the question I asked, which is, is him going back to Alexandria really about confronting Rick and saying, hey, I'm sorry, you're right. You were absolutely right, and I did need you, and I did need to be a part of the world. You could hide, but you can't run. Or I think that's what he said.
Yeah, I think that's what he said. Yeah, it's complicated.
Yeah, I am interested to see, because I think Morgan is going to be the key again to bringing these guys back, taking them to the next level. But if you saw the mid-season teaser before this episode aired, you do see that scene where and I forgot to bring up something that I saw in the teaser of last time. But yeah, you do see a scene of him saying, with him having the words on his forehead, I lose people, I lose myself.
Yes.
So that's interesting. So it seems as though, first of all, it feels like he stays, maybe, or maybe he does start to make his way back to Alexandria. I don't know, and then maybe he starts to feel crazy a little bit.
He has a tendency to start going a little crazy.
But it's always something that happens, though.
Yeah, something that triggers it.
Yeah, so I wonder who they lose, maybe? I don't know.
I hope not John Dory.
Oh, wow, that would be interesting.
That would trigger it for him.
You know how we can find out is, I mean, let's put it this way.
Instagram.
Yeah. Who's currently doing a lot of work right now? I mean, they're done filming though, anyway, so that really doesn't mean much.
Right.
I was gonna say, Garrett Dillahunt seems to be planet hopping right now.
Yeah.
He's kind of going around the world right now.
Yeah.
Filling his life up with work, and they know that season 5 is going to film at some point. So
yeah, exactly.
It's just a matter of when they start shooting and whether Garrett Dillahunt is still hopping around the world, and then we'll have the answer.
Right.
Wow.
I would hope not. That would break my heart.
Do you think June and John Dory, do you think the idea that John had about going back to the cabin, was that a good one, do you think? Because throughout this episode we're talking about old habits, right? Mm-hmm. And June was saying about, I don't think that's who I am anymore, and will he be in love with the person I am now? But I think you can accuse John of doing the same thing. Now, maybe the cabin was who you were, what you needed to get away from society, right? Because of the thing that he did with the robber. Mm-hmm. Is that John Dory anymore?
Probably not, but it's all that he knew, So, I mean, he automatically kind of defaults to that cabin. It's my personal opinion. I feel like he just kind of defaults because it's all he knows.
Do you think it's a good plan?
Obviously, like, that cabin was not immune to attacks, clearly. Right. So,
from all the trash washing up.
Right. I don't know if it's the safest place to be, but at the same time, where is it safe? I don't know.
I wonder if it's a good plan. I think they really should just stick together and stay near each other.
Yeah, definitely.
Like, with all the issues that they have with each other, they're kind of all they have, really. I mean, as much as they don't want to let Charlie be in the same McMansion, like, right. Okay, at least be nearby.
Right.
And maybe that was her mistake. I mean, maybe Mel was right about big communities and stuff like that. And also, that kind of does spill over to The Walking Dead, by the way. Maybe having these big communities is a bad idea. Maybe it's not about that. Maybe it should be just these little patches of little tinier communities. Because Daryl says that, by the way.
Yeah, Daryl does.
Do you remember?
Yeah, he does. He says that, this doesn't feel right. Like this big kind of like multiple groups kind of. He preferred it when it was just a small group of them on the road.
Yeah, exactly. So that's interesting too, huh?
Yeah, no,
maybe they're right. Maybe Mel is right. Maybe this is what happens to big communities. Maybe you got to spread out a little bit.
Yeah.
That's interesting. Maybe that's a commentary on The Walking Dead too.
Yeah, something to consider.
It's a good setup episode. Let's put it that way.
I think so. Yeah.
And then from there they can just jump up and do like crazy things, like which obviously is going to be happening with Alicia and Charlie next week. Little Hitchcock Presents episode in my mind. Definitely. I wanted to talk briefly about Chris Hardwick's tearful return. I want to get your impressions on that.
I thought it was very heartfelt. I thought it was very heartfelt.
Did you feel something? Did you start tearing up too?
Well, I don't know if I teared up, but I did think it was very heartfelt because I think it was very well said. The way he delivered his, and I think I saved it actually. I want to say I'm so appreciative to be standing here right now, and I want to thank you, the Walking Dead community, for all of your support these last couple of months. I've said the following words a million times, countless times, and yet I've never been more thankful than I am at this very moment to say to you that I'm Chris Hardwick and this is Talking Dead. And I think that's
a pretty good intro.
I was like, wow, that is, very compelling because you kind of take things for granted. And I think that this experience, whatever happened with this ex-girlfriend, obviously wasn't substantiated enough to the point that they could really do anything about it. There just wasn't enough there based on their investigation.
Based on the investigation. From what I'd heard about, what was it, Lombard that conducted the investigation, is that I don't have definitive proof that this happened because I hadn't read definitive proof, but it seems as though when they confronted Chloe Dykstra about this, that she refused to cooperate with them. Mm-hmm. Which, and again, see, I rarely give my personal opinions on something when it's even me personally talking to somebody, so I don't have any commentary on that, and I won't. But what I will say is, what it feels to me is that maybe as a result of the investigation, maybe the result of AMC's decision, let's say as a result of the investigation, is that we got an eyeful of a relationship that was not good.
Right.
And in the court of public opinion, the verdict can go any which way. And I can see that, and there are clearly people who left the Talking Dead crew.
Mm-hmm. I read about that.
From a producer, I think at least a producer and a handful of crew members. Like really not that much, actually.
No.
But and a lot of those papers that kind of like to blow things up say, a large handful. It was like really like, it was I think like 6 plus a producer.
Yeah, I mean, it's
in a crew of like hundreds, maybe, or 100
right.
or so.
I mean, it's like, come on.
It's like a small percentage, but regardless, it's kind of like I can easily see people still being kind of upset with Chris. I'm not one of those people. I'm not. I judge on evidence. I read everything, and it wasn't good, and it just felt like heartbreaking. And at the end of the day, Chris chose not to say anything, and he seems like somebody who is very conscious about, at least now, let's say now, he's very conscious about the way people live their lives. Don't text. Remember that every time he ends the show, except maybe this time, I don't remember if he did that, but like don't text and drive. He's really conscious about the way people live their lives. He wants people to be safe. He wants people to be happy. Maybe that wasn't always the case. And if you remember, Chris Hardwick was it the fat guy and the little overweight chubby guy in what was that show that was on MTV? Yeah. Oh, what?
Singled Out is a dating.
Singled Out. That's what it was.
Yes, it's a dating game show that ran on MTV from 1995 to 1998. The original hosts were Chris Hardwick and Jenny McCarthy.
Go figure, huh?
Jeez.
look at the way their careers ended up. I mean, that's really weird, isn't it? If you want to compare, one became like an anti-vaxxer. And the other,
we're not even going to go there.
we can't. It's not in our sphere.
It's not in our sphere.
And look what he became. He became like a nerd comic. This really high profile. He founded Nerdist, which is all about nerd fandom and stuff like that. And then
he found a niche.
Yeah, and he became the host of Talking Dead.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like strides. And look, obviously he's evolved. He looks a lot healthier. If you look at pictures from Singled Out,
I know.
You see it too, right?
I
always regard him as that.
Wow.
So, and again, it's not like to knock people that are overweight, but it's just kind of like he was a very self-deprecating person. In any one of his appearances, he was very self-deprecating, and it was funny, but it was also kind of like, okay, I get it, okay. And then to see that he's like that in real life, in not the most flattering way, it just seems to amount to prosecuting him for being for those two not having a great relationship. She obviously isn't immune from that, by the way.
Right, and I mean, it's one of those things that I've always said. They
both had issues.
There is a fine line between being an asshole and being a sexual predator or a rapist.
Yeah.
And we have to kind of discern between those descriptions. And it's very, very critical that you do, because you don't want to torpedo someone's life and career and friendships and relationships in general over pinning some sort of moniker on them that may not be really reflective of what the case may be.
Or them as a person on the whole, too, by the way.
Right, exactly. So at the end of the day, I was one of those people that was really, really hopeful that it was going to work out in the way that it did. I was already anticipating it wasn't.
Yeah, me too.
Thinking, okay, Yvette Nicole Brown is going to be the new host, and that's what it's going to be. So I was actually kind of surprised when it came out like, nope, everything was cleared. He's back.
Clear.
Clear.
Morgan cleared it.
Yeah. But I mean, but I'm glad it did. And I thought that it was very heartfelt. I thought that he's very, very appreciative of being back. I think he's very, very appreciative of the support he's gotten, because he did get a lot of support. There were a lot of people that were in his camp in terms of just regular fans. So
it seems clear just from the intro. And by the way, I even noted when he was going to commercial, I could easily see him taking those words for granted, by the way. We'll be right back. Those words, we'll be right back. You could see him pause, like, or just appreciate in his eyes. He's appreciating those very words.
He's very appreciative. You can see that.
We'll be right back, including me. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah. No, he's very appreciative of being back in his role again. It's abundantly clear.
Yeah.
It's very, very clear. And I think it's very sincere.
I'm glad we spent a little bit more time on that, because I feel like we needed to give that a little bit more clarity. Because I wrote in my notes, it said Chris Hardwick's tearful return. I was like, let's spend a little time on that, because I definitely did feel the weight of probably what was going on throughout the entire ordeal.
Yeah.
What he must have been going through. Because I feel like I've kind of been there, not exactly there in different iterations. I've had messy,
in what sense?
I've had messy, I would even classify abusive relationships. Mainly one, but it's this whole mess of things where you've divulged certain things about that relationship to best friends, and then those friends end up, after this messy ass breakup, they end up still hanging out with them. And there's like this, and that's like the least of that. And when you feel like you don't have anybody to turn to, when things like that happen, it's like, oh my God, my best friends are still hanging out with this person. I'm here alone. I'm staying at home alone when they're like going to parties, and you see pictures from those parties on Facebook or something. Like, it's kind of like this real, to magnify that by 1,000. That's Chris's, and they're posting that stuff online. They're in her corner and all that stuff. They're kind of like, I know I wasn't an angel during this relationship, but like, this could really seriously mess up the things that I worked really, really hard to build. I'm being prosecuted for my personal relationship with this person who wasn't perfect herself. Right, exactly. As much as I think she did reveal her position many times. That she explained where she was coming from. She had issues. She had, I'm not I'm going to go into all of it, but it's clear that she had issues of her own that she was tackling with, and so his issues and it just seemed like two people that had their own types of personal issues being together, and it wasn't just wasn't healthy relationship for either of them. They just needed to be not with each other, and then that thing that was already bad that they both went through together, and they finally broke off. That was hard enough, but to have that spill over into what you tried to accomplish on your own, that's the thing. A nightmare. We as people go through these things, but it's not put on the public realm and magnified, for a spotlight for everyone to judge. And meanwhile, they had to go through this very, very public ordeal. Right. The thing that they already went through, they have to relive again. Right. And not only that, based on the public opinion, basically, the judges of public opinion, that is the measure of at which you get to keep your career. That's crazy to me. It is. Judges, but it's not lest you be judged, right? Ooh. Yeah. And it's tough to talk about, because obviously you and me, we both care about. We don't want people to be harassed. We don't want people to be psychologically tortured and whatnot. And you, more than I know, the day-to-day of women, what they have to go through. And it's hard enough. Yeah. But it's worse when the issue kind of gets sidetracked a little bit, too. Right. When it's kind of like what you were talking about the other week. Okay. You were talking about how there are just some things that I can't, having kids, spin my wheels on, Right. This kind of doesn't this isn't really contributing to the overall cause. This is really taking away from it, right? No, exactly. In some ways. It's a good conversation to have, but it's not a cautionary tale. You can use it as a cautionary tale of saying, like,
this is an example of what is not part of this cause. This is a bad relationship is what it was. And that sucks. But it's one of those things that I've always kind of had a real issue sometimes with the...
Because you kind of adore celebrities too, right? You follow them and you get involved, sort of, right?
Yeah, I mean, I follow certain ones.
Right.
But my issue is more like I've met women who, to me, are the worst examples of people who like to call themselves a feminist.
I see what you're saying.
Because they lump all men as one and the same, as just evil, and they're just this and whatever. And I think it's very ignorant and one-dimensional for whatever, because it's like I don't want men thinking, oh, all women are that. There are many categories that are like, well, most women do this. It's like, but I may not necessarily fall in those categories, and that's fine. There's exceptions to everything, so I don't think that you can do that. And that's why in this case of the Me Too movement and sexual harassment and all of that, we have to really kind of look at the situations and understand the differences. It's not all one and the same. Like I can look at Chris Hardwick's situation and say, okay, this is very likely could have been just two damaged souls and troubled people in a relationship that just was completely toxic,
Right.
And that's horrible, but that doesn't constitute a breaking of the law, and that does not merit for this man to lose his livelihood and his career that he's built because he was a shitty boyfriend. It doesn't make any sense. Now, if there was an instance of rape or things like that, absolutely. Then you're in another realm, which is a different story.
Well, yeah, even in this conversation, even in this realm, there are some people who will equate the worst part about all this is that Chris chose not to tell his side of the story.
Mm-hmm.
Honestly, I have feelings about it. I would say that on a purely emotionless level, that is a smart move to take because, to be honest, and I think there's two sides of that. One is that I think there is a part of him that regrets some of the things that he did in that relationship,
right?
And so he feels like, you know what, nothing I say is going to change the wrong that I was making, the wrong choices I was making during that relationship,
right? Yeah.
But number two is that my impression of Chris Hardwick is that he is a feminist.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
In I don't know, maybe let's say the classical sense of the word, right? That he does believe that there's harassment is there, that there is some sort of bias. There's a generalized bias when it comes to women, let's say in the workplace, when they're women in the street, women in conversation, that there is something like that, and then we need to focus on maybe if we see things like that or keep our eyes open to kind of adjust our dials and maybe behavior in some ways to kind of reverse that or level the playing field, things like that. You know what I mean?
Right.
So I do sense that he is that. So I think part of doing that is to allow, and maybe part of the Me Too movement was to, let's listen first. Let's try to understand and maybe converse about it and see how we can do better. And so I think the tack that he was taking on that side of the coin is that, you know what, let's just let her say what she needs to say.
Right.
But then when the hammer started dropping, it's kind of like, do I let this still continue? I was like, you know what, yeah, I'm going to stick to that principle.
Don't engage
because honestly, it doesn't help.
It's not going to.
I will accept my fate as a result of this. And it's kind of like, okay, well, he's falling on his sword. That's interesting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
From everything that I read, I saw no desire on his part to challenge it. I think he was kind of, you know what, let's at least do some sort of investigation. I'm open to that. I will talk to whoever I need to talk to. AMC gave him a chance. And to be honest, we both were on the same page. We both thought, okay, this isn't going to go well, blah, blah, blah. I mean, this usually doesn't go well when there's an investigation of some kind. It's kind of like, well, yeah, goodbye. So,
yeah.
But to see that it didn't, and he was fully cooperative and all that stuff, I thought that's pretty interesting that he resigned himself. So
I think it was a good approach. I think it was the right way to handle it. I think he handled it appropriately.
Yeah, I think so. Like professionally, he handled that, I think, very well, and even as like from the feminist perspective, let's say, I think he handled that in that respect too. I think he held to his new principles. I guess if you want to compare it to the episode that we watched, I think he's refusing to fall back on his old ways. Yeah. So that's kind of poignant in some respects. Like he's embracing the Madison way of charity and letting people in, saving people, and he's kind of just letting things come what may, and in this instance it was the right choice to make, and he was fully cooperative, and he had what to lose, but he's kind of like, if I lose it in the name of doing the right thing, at least, I complied, I had faith in the system, and I fully expecting to lose that position, the thing that he worked for and perfected. Like, if that's how it's going to be, that's how it's going to be. So to be vindicated like that, though, man, wow.
No, I was very happy for him. I was sincerely very happy for him.
But this isn't the hashtag Me Too channel. This is Walking Dead.
I know, but we cover so many topics. I mean, because listen, Walking Dead isn't just a bunch of zombies. I mean, it's a lot going on here. It's reflective of today's world.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, from our first few episodes where we started tearing apart season 8 of The Walking Dead, we were already comparing it to politics, to what we need to do as people to get together, to let it go, to have conversations, to not stick to our tribe,
yes.
And to really start. I mean, we can disagree with each other, but at the end of the day, we have to live with each other.
Yep.
And we've been taking these lessons, harsh as they are sometimes, that we have to kind of bring to our own lives.
Yeah.
If that's not a good note to leave off on, I don't know what is.
I don't know what is. I think that's very fitting.
So how about with that, everybody? I think we're going to call this an episode.
I think so too. I think I'm ready for the next episode. See what comes from Alicia and Charlie's confrontation.
Yeah, I don't know what to expect, to be honest.
Don't know either, but I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, same here. I think there's only action from here on in, and maybe some comedy. Thank you, Mo Collins.
Yeah, I know. It's a moment of levity, right?
Yeah. I can't wait for that moment to happen. Maybe this episode, maybe the next one. I don't know, but I'm on the edge of my seat because I don't know what's going to happen next.
I know. It's like I don't know how this is all fitting in, but I'll be very curious to see.
Yeah, same. And I think with that, everybody, we'll catch you next week.
Awesome. See you all next time.
Thank you for joining us.